Hey there, dear student. Welcome to the first episode of our electronic music course, focused on bass house. I'll say a few words about myself now. I'm Servo, and I've been involved in electronic music for about 12 years. My tracks have already been released on labels like Hexagon, Chapter 8, Panther's Groove, Night Blue, and many others, roughly around 30 in total. I've been supported by artists like Don Diablo, Mike Williams, and many others. I've already gained a fair bit of experience. I'd like to share all the knowledge I've acquired over the past 12 years with you. In this course, I'd prefer not to dive into unnecessary theory like sevenths that might not be helpful. Instead, I'll show in practice how building a track like this actually works. I'll show all the techniques I've learned and do my best to keep things as simple as possible. I'll do it in a way that keeps everything clear, so you can build a track from start to finish. You'll gain the knowledge to mix a track well, master it properly, decide on the BPM we'll work at, and understand exactly what it's all about. First of all, I'd like to address a very important topic, which I've called musical psychology. Meaning everything that shapes us, where we're headed, and what truly matters in this whole musical journey. So without further ado, let's move on to the first episode. Music isn't some golden rule you can just learn and memorize by heart. And every time you approach production, it won't automatically turn into a great track. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. First and foremost, take care of your mindset. You can't approach this music like it's a punishment. Kind of pessimistically telling myself that every time I do it, I get stuck and can't finish anything. You need to approach it with a good attitude, with genuine enthusiasm for it. Because pouring all that fun into it will carry over into your production, and if you approach it with a negative attitude, that will carry over into your production too. Unfortunately, if you're sad, you won't be able to create something cheerful. Whereas if you're happy, nothing sad will come out. And it seems to me that this is what the whole art is about. You need to find the fun in it, the desire to do it, so the music carries you. Let those emotions come from within and flow into the sound. How to manage that mindset? First of all, stop expecting too much of yourself. Take care of your environment. Tidy up your desk. Take a short walk before producing. Just clear your mind. Don't treat music like some obligation or expectation. If you sit down telling yourself, I have to make a track, no, that's not how you can do it at all. Go at it more like, I'll mess around with some music, have some fun, try a few experiments. It'll be fun, a chill way to spend time. Try to go at it like that, not with expectations. Otherwise, 10-15 minutes in, something won't go your way, and boom, block, your thoughts go negative and the magic just vanishes. So remember to keep it chill, approach it with ease and calm. Above all, it should be fun. It should feel like an adventure. Pour those good emotions into the music. That's exactly how it should be. And as mentioned earlier about expectations, life moves in waves, and that applies to production too. Sometimes we end up making a better track, sometimes a worse one, and that's often just how it goes. And it often looks like this. You do manage to make a good track. It's just that sometimes you simply can't. Sometimes things turn out better, sometimes worse, and you can't let it get to you. We all go through this. Sometimes we get demotivated and distracted because we don't see progress in ourselves. It's like seeing yourself in the mirror every day and looking at yourself. You age little by little, but you don't really notice it. But if someone sees you after 3 years, they'll notice those changes in you. And the same goes for progress. I can compare it to this. When I listen to my tracks from 2 or 3 years ago, only now do I hear the mistakes I was making back then. So it also depends on how often you practice making tracks. Nothing helps as much as practice, and more practice. And that's what you should mainly focus on. It's not like you'll watch this course and suddenly be able to make great tracks. No, that's not how it works. You can watch it once, twice, even 3 times, pause it, or work along with me. That doesn't mean everything will happen at the snap of a finger. Remember, you can't give up. It all comes down to practice. You have to keep practicing all the time. And you'll see, sometimes you might not even notice the progress yourself, but someone else will and tell you. Because that's how it usually works. We ourselves don't see the progress we've actually already made. Sometimes you'll make an absolute banger of a track, and sometimes you can tinker all day and get nothing. And when that happens, you know what? Take the day off. Do something else. Do something for yourself. Go for a walk, hit the gym, go for a run, or meet up with friends. Sometimes there are days when it just doesn't happen. Maybe the biometeorological conditions aren't favorable. Maybe it's the hectopascals or some other forces at play. But sometimes it just doesn't happen. We aren't machines. We don't work like AI these days. You type a prompt and it's done. We have our crises, our better and worse moments. And that's how it will always be with music. So don't worry about it, because it's not like what we see on Instagram, where stars look like they always make a great track. But you don't really know if they always do. It may be that they make 15 others, and their management says, no, not this one. Go with this, go with that. And what you see is the one track chosen from the 15 they made. So it's not like every producer is always killing it, or whatever. So that, in my opinion, is also very important. It can even happen that you make a track you don't really like, but others go, wow, what a track. And that's the problem too. It's hard to read the market. Sometimes what feels weak to us can be great to someone else. So don't hoard those tracks. Don't make 100 and let them sit in a drawer. It's better to make 50 and release, say, 30 of them. I'm not saying release every single one, but share stories. For example, I had fun here, or made a cool track here. Someone might notice you. Step by step, one person, then another. Soon it's 50, then 100, then 1,000. And that's exactly how it is. You need to show that you're present, that you're here, you're creating, you're having fun with it and enjoying the process. And then people will come to you on their own. That's how it works. Music isn't just about production techniques or theory. The whole surrounding context matters. That's why these topics are included, because they seem important and relevant. These are the things that shape attitude. How to live through the whole journey with music and find oneself in it. Because knowledge and the act of producing are one thing, and how you approach it, your mindset, whether it brings you joy, or whether years pass and you're still stuck, frustrated, unsure if you'll keep pursuing it, is another. So, in my view, this music psychology, so to speak, is very important too. Determination matters, and arguably, it's the most important thing. Don't give up. There will be criticism, no matter how good or how bad you are. There will always be critics, and there will also be people who support you. But there will also be others constantly trying to needle you. You're weak, blah, blah, blah. That's how the world works. We have to cope with not being perfect. We're not machines. And thankfully, that's what sets us apart. In these times, when it may seem like you can make a banger with 3 prompts, it's unclear where that leads. But hopefully people will open their eyes. The machine won't do everything for us. What matters here is us, not AI. Been there myself, and many producers have wondered whether it still makes sense with all this AI. Let's make use of AI. I'm not saying to prompt entire tracks, although If someone wants to, they can. Their life, their choice. Still, it's worth holding on to that passion. Don't give up, don't get discouraged. Just learn to find your footing in new situations. Above all, look at it positively. And let me repeat, don't give up. Prove it to those who don't believe in you, and prove it to yourself that you'll reach your goal. Even if it takes 5 or 10 years, you've got this. I believe in you. My mindset is, maybe this one won't work out. Maybe I didn't get into that label. Sure, there's a bit of a slump, but what do? I grit my teeth and say, yeah, watch this, and I keep pushing. You keep going, and after a while you say, wow, or people on the outside say, wow, you really have determination. You've got grit. That's what it's mainly about. In fact, that's what it's about in any passion. Let's take it a step further. We've covered the more emotional mindset side. Now let's move a bit toward production and talk about what is actually needed to produce. Right away, formal music school isn't required. Of course, if you studied it, things will be easier because you have a foundation. But nowadays, there's so much knowledge available. When starting out, there were maybe 10 or 20 tutorials total. You'd learn a bit, and it felt like, wow, so much knowledge. Now there are countless tutorials and resources, an enormous amount of knowledge available through courses, videos, and online tutorials. With this level of access to information today, there's no need for school to make good music. I'm self-taught. I didn't attend any music school, and yet I managed to release tracks on some bigger labels and sometimes get decent numbers. I used to think, I need music school to produce. I need a better monitor, better headphones. No, I definitely need to switch DAWs because this one isn't working. I kept looking for a culprit, but it turned out that wasn't it. The truth is, you don't need lots of gear. Of course, the more and the better the gear, the better. Obviously. It isn't strictly necessary for any of this, because what do you really need today? A computer. And these days, machines can easily handle smaller or less demanding projects. No problem. And what else? I definitely recommend having studio monitors and headphones, because it's great to check music on multiple systems. It's worth having speakers for reference. Many times I worked on headphones and everything sounded fine, but then I switched to speakers and thought, what happened here? Or in the car. On headphones sounded fine, then you play it in the car and it's like, what the fuck? What just happened? So it's worth checking a production on different systems, and this might surprise you. On a phone speaker too. Imagine that most listeners will first hear the track on a phone, and that's a bit tricky. Sometimes you tune a track with extreme stereo pans, but on a phone, even with left and right speakers, you're effectively hearing it in mono, so it suddenly sounds different. Why? Because it wasn't checked in mono. That's what these small details are about. The little things that make a track sound clean. The overall picture is built from all those tiny details. Combine 500 small, precise choices, and that's what creates the full picture of the track. We'll go through this course calmly and at an easy pace. You can always pause at any point if something isn't clear. You can even message me if something doesn't make sense. I'll be happy to explain what I meant and what I wanted to convey. I'll do my best to make everything as clear as possible, but sometimes things can still be unclear. So feel free to write to me on Instagram or anywhere else. I'm here to help. In this course, we'll cover the bass house genre and use it as our foundation. I'll get straight to what bass house is about. Its defining characteristics. Step by step, I'll explain roughly what I put where I aim to build tension, and where to release it, so it makes sense and can be mapped onto personal understanding. Interpret it in your own way and experiment. Above all, remember to experiment with music. Don't listen to people saying, you have to do it more like this, more like that. We're approaching a point where everything sounds so formulaic and familiar that increasingly it will be the extreme experimental ideas that stand out. And remember, if a style is copied constantly, a personal style will never truly develop. If experimentation continues, there may be chaos at first, but once that chaos is shaped, it becomes a unique style. So I'll just reposition the camera, pop the window up so you can see my DAW, and we'll go through it step by step. I got a bit ahead of myself jumping into the practical part, but I want to mention a few more things. I want to cover them so as much information as possible can be taken away and applied. Because every element I talk about is, in part, important. I also want to touch on musical flow. You've probably run into this. You're building a break or a drop and can't get the break to work. Or the other way around, you can't move from the drop into the break and you get stuck. I remember a while back, 3 or 4 years into producing, I'd build only breaks, then try to build a drop for them, and I'd freeze right there. The main issue was that by not building full tracks, just focusing on the breaks, polishing them with mix and mastering and adding tons of elements, the break sounded finished. Then when starting the drop, I'd spend, say, 3 hours on the break and only 30 to 60 minutes on the drop. So the quality contrast was huge and it didn't gel. At some point, the contrast between the quality of the break and the drop was so big that they never clicked together, and I wouldn't finish the track. So I introduced a daily practice I called a speed run. A 1 hour or 2 hour challenge to build a whole track within that time, no matter what. Even if the melody was weak or the drums weren't polished, the point was to make a complete track, not just a part. That, in hindsight, was key to improving my flow. Often we nail one section and then can't finish the track. And for me, that was the key to solving this problem. As said, we often polish a given section and then struggle to finish the whole track. And remember, the art isn't making a killer break or just the drop. The art is completing the entire track from start to finish. Like a runner, they don't only train the start, they train the entire run, start to finish. Same with production, practice intros, breaks, builds, drops, outros, everything. Learn every part so the whole thing sounds cohesive. That's how to improve workflow. So that would be it as far as improving workflow. Even once in a while, once a month, or if it's a real issue, focus on it because it's truly an amazing technique. Same with the sample packs I make. As some of you have noticed, they're built and organized completely differently. Before making my own packs, I used to create folders and drop specific sounds directly into them, grouped so I had instant access without digging through various folders, especially since every pack uses different naming conventions for things like kicks, claps, or effects. The main goal was to speed up workflow and have everything at hand when needed. When I got into sound design and started making packs, I categorized them the same way and found it works really well.
Często w paczkach mamy tak, że no musisz wejść w trans, potem szukasz, nie wiem, fills czy coś i szukasz tego i tak naprawdę
I always joke with my friend Ardo, who I often collaborate with. At first, he argued with me that my way wasn't better. He was used to other packs. I'd tell him, all right then, go find, say, a kick in another pack and start counting. 1, 2, 3. It always makes me laugh. After a while, using my packs, he admitted I was right. It really is easier and faster. That's precisely why a different folder organization also improves working time. Like I said, if I'm looking for a riser, I glance left, click risers, and it's there. I don't have to wonder whether someone filed it under FX, atmospheres, or some other folder. Or when I'm looking for some percussion or another sound, I just click percussion shot and it's there instantly. That's exactly the point. This different folder organization is also a nice component for improving workflow. Another important thing, which comes from personal experience, I still make this mistake sometimes, is overcomplicating a track. I'm not really a DJ. I used to play some 18th birthdays and private events, but I'm mainly a music producer. At some point, I started complicating tracks more and more, and stopped listening like a regular listener. For example, I'd make a drop melody, nice first idea, laid down in MIDI, sounded good, and then I'd loop it, and after a while it would start to bore me. Then I'd begin to refine it, again and again. After a while, the melody starts to bore me, and I begin adding more notes, more and more. As a result, the melody becomes overloaded, and I don't feel it anymore because I've gotten too used to it. Only after coming back to the project in a few days would it be obvious. You open it after 3 or 4 days and think, what was the author even thinking? The trap in melody writing is overcomplicating it. I've noticed it's sometimes better to keep something super simple. Go with the first idea and move straight to the next section, rather than perfecting one part at all costs. Otherwise, it leads to exactly what was just described. Often, we also build on a weak foundation. What does that mean? For example, a chord progression that runs through the whole track is just okay, not great. Then there's an attempt to dress it up with ambiances, FX, and other bells and whistles. The problem is, instead of creating a simple, solid foundation that already sounds good on its own, there's a tendency to force it, trying to prop it up with sound design or by piling on more elements. The result is a dense wall of information, and despite the busy mix, the track still doesn't sound good. If the foundation is poor, it won't work, so it's worth paying attention to that. Another key issue is mixing itself, and a very common mistake producers make, mixing on fatigued ears. Our ears get bombarded by the frequencies we're hearing, especially on headphones, and physiologically start to protect themselves. So perception stops being accurate. For example, high frequencies may be heard less. After long composing sessions, say 5 hours, and then a 3-hour mix right after, or all night, the next day, it's, ow, my ears, what happened? The highs are over bright because they were boosted too much. This happens because hearing has started attenuating part of the spectrum, leading to pointless boosts. Instead of a focused 1 to 2 hours, the whole night gets spent fixing and making new moves every hour, and it ends up sounding worse than when the mix began. Also try, after finishing a track, to leave it for a while. Or even give it to someone else to listen to, because a first-time listener will catch different things than someone already familiar with the track. It's worth asking for feedback and taking every suggestion reasonably seriously. Not that everything needs to be implemented, but it lets new issues be found in the music. Don't just keep polishing a track in circles and never let anyone hear it. Then it gets sent to a label and it's like, oh, why didn't we get in? Why was the demo rejected again? A week later, you listen again and go, honestly, no wonder it was rejected. Another important point. Don't focus solely on the mix. Everything doesn't have to be hyper-polished. Sure, it can't be a mess, but remember, the mix isn't everything. There's a saying, if the composition is great but the mix isn't perfect, bigger labels will still take the track. Listeners aren't producers. They don't hear everything producers hear. Even when listening back to tracks from 2 years ago, only now do certain details become audible. So imagine what an average listener hears. Of course, if the mix is a disaster, it's an immediate turnoff. But if the composition is weak, even the best mix won't save it. Conversely, a great composition with a slightly imperfect mix can always be improved, or someone else can mix it. If you want, you can send it to me and I'll mix it. More than welcome. But the point is, that's the key. Composition, and once again, composition. That's what this is all about, so pay special attention to it. Sometimes it's better to start 2 or 3 tracks at the same time and jump between projects. If you get stuck on the first and can't move forward, switch to another. In my view, that's a more progressive way of working than forcing a single track, opening it over and over and trying to finish it when there's no idea at the moment. At first, the project felt exciting. Then you started mixing it by force, adding odd tweaks just to finish, and it ends up abandoned on the drive, never seeing the light of day. That used to be a common mistake, so don't do that. If you're stuck and out of ideas, hop to another project. Sometimes a project that felt good before stops resonating later. So revisit it after some time. Either it clicks again, or just roll back to the point where it still felt right. Maybe it simply went off the rails at some stage. Don't try to force it. It seems there's no golden rule about starting with the drop, the progression, or any other part. Honestly, starting points vary all the time. Search for inspiration and an idea. Or take a reference, a track that you liked. Drop it into the DAW and check it element by element. See which instruments were used, what you liked most, what caught your attention. Of course, this isn't about copying the track one-to-one exactly as someone made it. But look for what was characteristic of that track, what motifs or instruments it used. Write all of that down and then try to build a new project using similar sounds or motifs. Another neat trick. These days, it's very easy to extract a vocal from a track. Try making a remix. If there's a great vocal in a song, build a full setting around it. Chord progression, arrangement, the works. Then later swap the vocal out. That can work really well sometimes. I sometimes have it like that too. I'd be working on a production that wasn't moving forward. So I'd say, okay, I'll do something else. I started a remix, and when I heard a really nice vocal, i.e. the vocal melody, it was easy to build the whole surrounding framework around it. Then I simply swapped the vocal for another one and, in this way, created a new sound. Another important aspect of production is the drums themselves, the groove they create. Groove is what makes the body move, makes you tap your foot. It's what leads into dance. If the composition is good but the drums lack groove, no bounce, no nice swing, the track won't feel good. Sometimes just drums plus one or two elements will get everyone moving, making it more enjoyable. So ensure the drums have strong groove. Watch those details and heavily vary the percussion. In a moment, there'll be plenty of tricks on this. As mentioned, there's no need to start with the drop or the break. Go where the flow leads and do what makes sense in the moment. There's no golden rule. Frankly, it's definitely easier to build a break once the drop is done than the other way around. That's surely easier, which is why many producers start with the drop. Personally, it no longer matters where the start is. Once the flow is there, it's possible to move on from any section without overthinking. For some, though, this can be an issue, so consider this a useful tip. All right, it feels like we've covered plenty of general music production tips and tricks. So without further delay, let's switch to the practical mode and polish everything related to Bass House. Today we'll be talking about Bass House, as mentioned earlier. My take is that it's house at around 126–130 BPM fused with dubstep. This is a Sound ID reference. What is it about? We have an intro here. Then we move on to the build-up. We have the drop here. And generally I could finish at this point. In the first drop, I leaned on serum and the like, whereas in the second, I tried to use more samples to show different approaches. Generally, a radio mix would look like this. We would start with, be careful so you don't get phase cancellation. As you can see, we have a kick here, and the waveform goes up and down, up and down. Let's insert two kicks now. Let's record these two kicks now. And what happened here? Look, we got phase cancellation. A kind of hole formed, and it sounds unpleasant. Do you hear how one cancels the other? In the end, the length of these little notes here matters too. It's not that every note has the same length. To get more dynamics, I use some slightly shorter and longer ones. Here it's just a Reese. Here we have the fundamental bass plus a second element at +7 semitones. The idea is to hold attention and tension on that one note for a moment, and then release it with a nice melody. And this is also a neat technique. For example, to start on the tonic note, here I had fi. At this point I added some extra notes. And as you can see here, the bass is jumping across octaves. We've got a ton of effects on it. Listen to how it sounds without them. Here's a nice reverb from Kashmir. I highly recommend it. It works like this. When the lead hits, and here there's a looped motif, as if I were making a build-up, only at the end. See how nice it sounds.
Mamy tutaj
Here we have a new
kolejnego
bass.
basu.
And now I loop the vocal, like making a loop, and that also works great.
Więc ja tam pam, 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 pam.
Here I'm pulling in the stereo on the mids a bit.
Też ściągam.
A combination of two drum kits with a ton of effects. That added a kind of crispy sound to it. In the second break, we have a vocal.
O, i słyszycie, że...
And here I cloned this vocal and added, this plugin is amazing. It has a de-esser built in, which works really well here. Most often with vocals, I do it like this, that. Here we have the glue, a compressor that glues this together for me. I'll spark a bit of creativity in you. We'll bring out what's playing inside you. And now, open the program you created. First, mark out the sections the way I've marked them here. Next, choose a percussion loop, so-called top loop. Now choose the scale you'll work in. It could be G, A, G, it doesn't matter. So most often we go up here, and the last note goes down, and that is your questions. Copy this melody to the second section and make a change at the end here. A different counter melody, but try to keep your rhythm. Next, go to the second part of the drop. Now copy that first drop to the beginning. So thank you once again for taking part in this course. And best regards.